Hello, everyone. Panyo here. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of After Dinner Mints. Before we begin, I highly encourage everyone watching to join us in the Art Blocks Discord. For those watching us on the live stream, there will be people in the community chatting in the Art Blocks Mints channel. A link to our Discord can be found in the description of this video. Like, comment, and join our already 1,000 plus subscribers to our YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode of our weekly show. And now I want to introduce our guest for this evening. We have Artblocks founder and generative artist, Snowfro. We have generative artist, Alexis André.
Hi.
And then we have Artblocks collector, Keight.
Hi, everybody.
So for tonight, we are changing our format for After Dinner Mints, where both guests, Alexis as an artist and Keight as a collector, will have a discussion with each other. This is a new format that we have been eager to try out, and if people enjoy this, I would be more than happy for artists or collectors to suggest pairings for a future After Dinner Mints. Should you have any questions for either of our guests, please send me a DM, and I will bring them up at the conclusion of their talk. And with that being said, Alexis, Keight, the floor is all yours.
Perfect. So thanks for having me again, at least on the show. This is the second time for me. I did a previous one when it was only audio on the Discord. So for those who don't know me, I've been doing this for ages. And today, to show how old this is, I don't know if people might know what this is, but this is an original John Maeda t-shirt that was released in 2007 when it was the first generative art collaboration that I know of. So I've been doing this for 15 years at least at a decent level, and thanks to art blocks and everything, I've reached recently some level of successes that were not possible before. So I'd like to thank everybody for the opportunity and all the collectors, all the community for making this a reality. And my journey through NFTs and art blocks really started when I did this project called 720 Minutes. That was the first that I know of clock that is actually a live interactive piece that lives on the blockchain, and people still don't know that those are clocks. So it's still a struggling fight where I have to explain to those people that there is this. My first big piece on art blocks is actually something that has utility. It's a clock. You can see the hands and everything. And then from this point on, I did three different playground pieces that are called Void, Messengers, and Obisera. And they are part of an ongoing arc that just concluded at least, I think, 2 hours ago, when the final piece of the whole story was actually won by Erin on auction. So maybe we'll go through this to tell the story about this. And to give you an idea of why I think this tonight is going to be very interesting is because Keight is one of the biggest collectors of my work, and I really appreciate that, of course. But also, she was maybe the one that made me realize the potential for set making. And this is something that I really didn't understand when I started the journey through art blocks, where 720 minutes was not meant to be collected as sets. It was meant, okay, I would imagine that people might only get one and they would be happy with their mint, and then end of the story, right? But then I saw Keight in the Ringers channel, for example, and she was building those sets of different ringers and creating different stories, creating some new narrative across the piece. And I was like, oh, this is something that I was not aware of. There is this huge potential for, yes, you're creating something that is creatively similar, right? It's coming from the same algorithm. And then suddenly you have this like link across mints of the same collection. And then I was like, okay, this is something I need to work on. And my answer to that was Void, right? Trying to make a generative piece that would have this set building appeal. And when I saw that Keight was getting into collecting voids, I was like, oh, okay, then it's fine. it's going to be fine from this point on, because Keight is building sets, and Keight will bring her creative direction. Like she's not the creative one, but the creative direction. Like people create their own stories with the pieces we create as artists, right? The collectors provide context to the pieces. They create this interrelationship between pieces or across pieces when it's coming from a different um, piece or different drop. And that was something that I was really, really interested in getting feedback from the community, because personally, doing generative art for a long time, the key factor here is we have an audience of people that are tech savvy. They know what generative might be implying. That is, we have a piece of code that is running something, and then we output something that is not only pretty, but that is meaningful. And then people start to understand what we artists are trying to convey with the pieces. And that's where I think it might be time for Keight to speak a little bit more. And because I'm really interested in the appeal of sets, and Keight has been so far one of the few collectors that really stand out, uh, with Eric, of course, because Eric and Keight have a long, I guess, relationship of fighting over pieces, right? They're all trying to build the same sets and everything. So those two share a lot of history. I guess maybe they can comment on this a little bit later on. But yeah, if maybe Keight can, if you can just talk a little bit about your set building process, and why you think this is a perfect opportunity for collectors also to provide value to the pieces by adding this context and relationship between the pieces.
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of my history. I was introduced to art blocks, became aware of it back in December. Finally, sort of got my act together and minted my first piece in the first week of January. There were not that many people in the Discord. Things were moving kind of slowly. And, I minted a few pieces. I minted some ignitions, a few chromey squiggles. And then the Ringers project, Alexi, you mentioned my set building there. Ringers was announced. And I had some time on my hands. I watched the interview that Dimitri did with Sophia from ArtX Code, and I was just entranced by learning about the process of Dimitri working on this core algorithm over 3 years, having lots of different outputs, sometimes having things that turned up as mistakes but were really interesting that he then fed into the code. So that interview was just really interesting for me. The drop was going to be on a Sunday, and I had Saturday, and I spent pretty much the entire day looking at Rinkeby. So things have changed. For those of you that were around in January, there were 1,000 test mints of ringers, and all of the project features that now aren't released until after the project sells out. Those were also available. So I had this Saturday, and I had an idea from Dimitri of what he was trying to do with the project through this interview. And then I had 1,000 test mints and a bunch of data. And I spent the whole day looking at all 1,000 ringers and trying to almost kind of reverse engineer how you could get 1,000 distinct, interesting, beautiful, surprising pieces that individually are amazing. Yet when you look at them together, it's just incredibly powerful. You can see how the whole story stitches together, and yet also be amazed that a single algorithm could create all of these varied outputs. So that was really, for me, kind of what clicked for me for art blocks, was to understand. I wanted to understand what generative art was. I hadn't been exposed to it before, and that's really where I got started. So what was really fun was, again, this was back at the end of January. There were, I think, 90 people in Discord. It was a small, quiet place. And there was time to have a lot of conversation in the artist channel leading up to the launch and then immediately after. And having spent all that time kind of looking at the test outputs and thinking about the different features and recursion and all these things, I just found it was incredibly interesting to be with a community of people and also the artist talking about this art and exploring it and asking a million questions. I have a lot of beautiful art in my house. I've never met the artists. I've never talked to the artists. I think Art Blocks offers such a different opportunity to bring artists and collectors and just people who appreciate this art together to have the conversation. And I think we'll get into this more as we sort of have this conversation this evening. I think what I would say for me is my experience since January leading up to now has changed in a way. My experience of the art and what I value about the art has changed, and has become much more about the shared experience of the art, talking about it with the community, talking about it with you, Alexi, and other artists. That experience is as valuable to me as owning the pieces themselves. That's what I will remember. Yeah, so that was a long answer.
Well, so thanks a lot. Yeah, it's been, I guess, something that is also really crucial to the success of Art Blocks, is from also a personal point of view, is being able to interact with people that get it, right? Because when you are talking to the traditional art world, they don't understand what generative art is or what it can do, or what are the limitations of the form. And the history of the media also is not very well known. And we see this recently on Twitter, where people are calling everybody copy minters or whatever, because they don't know that those things are usual in the field. And just to be able to reach this audience of people that are interested in something that has been there for decades, suddenly changes the appeal of the art form, at least personally. And then by going deeper with these interactions with the community and the collectors, suddenly I personally have more ideas, because I try to understand what their viewpoint will be on new pieces, what they're interested in looking when they discover something new. And then there is this really new idea of pushing the art form further down the road, because suddenly we are faced with new challenges. We need to make pieces that are great at the scale of 1000 mins, something that we did not were asked to do before, because as Tyler wrote in one of his articles, it's what he's calling the long-term generative form. I guess that's the right, or people will link in the Discord the right article. But this idea of the generative process has completely changed right now, and the number of people that are able to understand this is increasing, but it's still a minority. And we are working together as a community to build this new understanding of what all this is about. So maybe it's time to get back to the story of the set buildings and everything, because when I've done this 3-part series, when it was Void, the planets, the source of the messengers that were moving through space to give us the message, that was Obisera. And I tried to link those 3 pieces in terms of story and also in terms of visual identity, so that people can create a lot of interesting pieces where they took one of each or similar pieces from the same collection. And maybe if you can just switch to my screen sharing, where I wrote a post on the newsletter for Art Blocks. So my face is here in super huge. I don't know why it was not smaller, but so I explained a little bit about everything, about the whole process behind Void, Messengers, and Obisera. And I will take this opportunity to thank you, Keight, because all the pieces that you see here that are in the Time for Blood color palette, that is this one right here, or the final one. If we go, this was actually a set that Keight created, and she went through a lot of hoops to have those 3 pieces, and then she decided to give them back to me. And this is something that is completely mind-blowing. Like, imagine some collector is spending weeks trying to secure pieces that were created by myself, and then all of a sudden she was like, I'd like to give them back to you. And I was like, are you sure? Because like this is like, And we had this discussion like, okay, those are my babies, right? Like I would have pictures of my kids in my house even after they left. But and then she was like, no, I would like you to have them so that they are getting back. And I was like, yeah, this is this really weird relationship with the pieces right now, because I know that Keight took the time to create this set for me. And suddenly the pieces right now is just not my pieces, right? It's a combination of the whole story that went through the community, that went through the set building process, that went through the mind of Keight, and Keight was super nice to give them back to me. So no, the collectors are providing value to to the pieces by creating those sets, creating those collections, and putting context behind those pieces. And like, okay, this is crazy. This is something that we never had before. Because we're dealing with some pieces that have a lot of mints. We are dealing with artists that are doing multiple pieces on the platform, and all of that is new. Like I really would like people to understand that this is not usual, right? This is not something that we had before, even dealing with generative art. This is crazy, and so thanks again, Keight, for this gift of the triptych, and like why, like really why, what do you find in the set building process that interests you? What is your viewpoint when you start to look at the new piece and say, oh, this will pair with that one? Or like, I'm really interested to know, what do you see when you start to tinker with those relationship between the pieces?
Well, I think there are two questions in there. Maybe I'll start with the specific and then go to the more general. So the more specific about the Time for Blood and why I wanted to give that set to you. As I said, for me, my experience and appreciation of this art and this space is about the community piece of this and sharing it with other people, and the memories of it. I adore this set. I absolutely love the Time for Blood palette. I think that binary star, when it was minted, I think we all of us in Discord who watched that get minted were like, holy crap, this is just so beautiful and surprising. I
Yeah,
just
that
absolutely
was
loved
a
it.
really wonderful experience. Yeah.
And remember, this is when Void, this project, minted out over a week. So we had plenty of time. You know, every night I might mint one, and then I might mint another, and then get up the next day and mint another. Anyway, it was a bit of an obsession. But so why give you this set? So you created these amazing pieces, and I created the set, and I liked the kind of symmetry of the back and forth, as you talked about, kind of the collectors adding something to this whole process. I adore the set. I never in a million years would have sold it. You're the only person I would give it to. And, you know, I got curious about, you know, the story could have ended that I had the set forever and passed it down to someone in my family. But I got curious about what it would be like if I were to give it to you. And then you get to write the next chapter of the story for this set. I think provenance of sets in particular is going to become interesting over time in this space. I'll be very curious. I think there's some amazing people in art blocks who create amazing sets. And I think these collectors putting that effort into it and creating a narrative around that set for pieces that for them are meaningful in a way that might not be for other people, but it's putting their own kind of fingerprint on this. And I think that's an interesting process. And I'm really curious to see how that plays out. So I don't know what you'll do with it. I'll be, I'll be watching. I'll be very curious to see what the next chapter is. So I was very happy to give it to you.
So just one quick question. Why Time for
Yeah.
Blood? Why do you like the Time for Blood palette?
Well, you know, I do love those colors. I have always loved the red and kind of that bluish teal. But a fun fact, I used to live in Transylvania, believe it or not. I moved there for work. When my boss first asked me if I would move to Transylvania, I thought, they're pulling my leg. That's not a real place. That's like Saturday morning cartoons or something. It's a real place. I was just ignorant. So, Transylvania, the famous national hero is a gentleman charmingly called Vlad the Impaler, who was the inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula. So kind of maybe all that time spent living in Transylvania, surrounded by lots and lots of castles that were all attributed to Dracula and Vlad the Impaler. I don't know, maybe that rubbed off on me and why I like that palette. So set building in general. I think Ponyo might drop a link. I mentioned this to Ponyo a few months ago. There's this amazing game that anyone who likes making sets, I highly recommend you spend the $10 or whatever and buy this card game, or it's also available online, and it's called Set, believe it or not. And I've probably had this game for 10 years and played it a gazillion times with my nieces and my nephew, and they crush me every single time. But the point of this card game is each card has different attributes. Each card has shapes, it has colors, and it has a number of shapes. And the goal, it's a speed game. You end up turning over a bunch of cards on the table, and you are trying to, faster than your opponents, pick a set of 3 cards from the ones that are available on the table, where for each attribute, whether it's shape or color of the shapes or number of shapes, for each of those 3 attributes, you have to pick 3 cards that are identical in that attribute or 3 cards that are all different. So if you could have 3 cards that each have circles, or you could have a card that has a triangle and a square and a circle, but you couldn't have 2 squares and a circle. Does that make sense? So for each of these 3 dimensions,
Yes.
each dimension has to independently be all identical or all different. And I think there's something, I think there's something about that game and playing that game a lot that kind of has been in the back of my head about thinking about creating sets and how to look for the interplay between different features of pieces, and whether, if it's 3 pieces in a set or 6, whether each is identical across a number of dimensions, or whether you play with some things that are identical or very similar and others that are different. I recommend the game. I think you guys will enjoy it. And maybe what I can do is share my gallery and show a few pieces, and it'll kind of reference a bit of how I think about sets. So Alexi, we'll get to lots and lots of your pieces, but I'll start with color studies and light beams. Starting here's how I thought about putting these together. I just adore both of these projects. What I liked about this combination was, first of all, these particular color studies all have either grids or horizontal vertical lines. So there's quite a bit of structure built into all of these, right angles, a lot of structure. The colors all kind of work well together. Up on the top, we have 2 saturated pieces. And while this one on the left is not saturated, the right side of it looks saturated to me, and it has this really interesting fade out to the left, which echoes a little bit of the fade that we see in the light beams in the middle. So if I go back to that card game set, what I see is there's sort of a mixture of structure and right angles with this very fluid light beam in the middle. So you're kind of playing off fluidity against rigidity, and yet all the colors work together. So it's kind of how I thought about putting this grouping together. If we look and we incorporate the eternal pump, the colors kind of come through, as we progressed down with the color studies, they started to get a little less saturated, a little more faded. You certainly see that in the eternal pump. These colors are quite subtle. And while the shapes are different, the hex, again, these nested hexes are very rigid in their structure. So it's kind of echoing color and form and the structure here. I really like the transition to this elemental. Again, it continues in the color theme. It continues in the squares and the rigid shapes here, but where it kind of breaks down in a good way, I think, is it sort of breaks free. These shapes are independently kind of floating, and they're not tethered to a structure like we saw with the color study and with the eternal pump. And this elemental, for me in my gallery, the elemental does a lot of work because it foreshadows a couple of things we're going to see next. One is circles, and all of you who know Alexis' work know that the trilogy is all about circles. So we're going to start to see a lot of circles. And also, here's a bit of that dark red, which is a bit like a fresh drop of blood. So transitioning down, then we come back to a couple of color studies, again, reintroducing this structure, but yet here we have the circles, but the structure kind of breaks down. This is a bit more freeform. Things are a little bit more chaotic. And so I like that the colors are connected, but you start to introduce this, what I think is kind of playful in that the Opusera isn't conforming to the structure of the other pieces that are surrounding it. I will say on many, many days, this messenger is my very favorite piece of art, period. I just think it's absolutely magical. And, I have it because of a trade with a community member where at no point did the conversation include rarity or anything like that. It was just both of us were looking for pieces that complemented our collections and things that spoke to us. And I almost cried when I got this piece. I was just so happy. It reminds me of a late summer day stone fruit that's just like so ripe that in 12 hours it's going to be bad, but right now it's just like beautiful and delicious. These colors are just so evocative, I think, of summer. And it won't come through on this small screen, but these are Alexis 1.2 million circles in this piece. I mean, this series just blows my mind. I think it's just amazing. And I would encourage everybody to go zoom in, get the highest resolution you can on any of Alexis' work in this series, but especially the messengers, I think, are just absolutely magical. Okay, so now we're really going to see a lot of Alexis' work. I would say this set of 6 is probably the hardest set that I've put together. The most difficult for me to put it together and pretty rewarding. It is 4 artists over 5 projects with a bunch of different color palettes. I think the colors work well together and are connected to the messenger. We've got 2 returns here, which again echo that theme of the circles from Alexis' projects. We have the circles in the watercolor dream in the middle, but while the returns are very structured and calm and kind of soothing, this guy in the middle is just a little bit more chaotic and what's going on. It almost looks a little fractured or broken. You come down in the middle and you have another messenger, which I think in some ways is also when it's bookended by the color study on the left and the void on the right, is an interesting interplay, I think, of this very free-form, untethered messenger with the 2 pieces on either side. It's almost like the void and the color study are trying to hem it in somehow and not really succeeding. So I really enjoyed putting this set together. And I would say, on the days, and there are a few, if this dark peach messenger isn't my favorite, then this color study is just, I think, absolutely magical. I look at this one almost every day. There's just something about the colors, and it feels very ethereal. This little hint of blue in the corner, and then this faded spot in the left corner. I don't know, it makes me want to see a much bigger canvas of what would have happened had the colors been able to continue. It's like a question to me. It just makes me want to think about it. We'll see. Let's see. This set of 6 at the bottom, now we're really into the heart of the trilogy. The matcha strawberry is one of my favorite palettes. I think it's just gorgeous. Again, the voids were so fun to mint and watch these come up. When I minted this spiral, I was just so enamored with it. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And it was fun because it minted out over the week that we all got to kind of ooh and ah over each of these. It was a lot of fun. In terms of the organization, well, I don't have a matcha strawberry ovacera, so that's something I'm keeping an eye out for. So I'm breaking with the triptych, but we've got a couple of voids here. And I think the circles, the planets here, tie into the circles that we have going on, in the corners here. So I think it works. And then I have to say, Alexi, you kind of threw me for a curveball with this fantastic palette, which the name of the palette is fantastic. You had dropped a few hints. You put a few sample mints in your channel leading up to the project drop, and I just love this palette. But these are 3 different color palettes because you changed some. You dropped a few palettes and you added some. So this proved to be challenging as well, and I hope I've done your work justice in terms of the colors, because that was a little bit hard. These are 3 different palettes.
But it doesn't look that way, and that's why the creation is important. Like, people build the stories and link the pieces in ways that I was not thinking about, and that's why I really love these interactions. Is the fantastic palette was meant to be a challenge, right? It's a new one. It has new teal colors. It's not the same warmth to it, and then suddenly people find that the previous palettes kind of work if you're able to guide the direction of the colors. So, like, amazing work.
It was fun. It was a fun challenge. And we have a few more transitioning to this another lovely color study. There's been so much going on above it. It's almost like a bit of a break between all of the activity of the pieces we've seen before. And I think this was the first color study in my gallery here that doesn't have the grid lines. And so it just has a bit of room to breathe. It's the color, and I love the simplicity of it. And it feels like a bit of a break between more active pieces. And I think we'll wrap up here, kind of circling back, kind of echoing back to the elementals, again, with this rigidity of the shapes, yet floating and a little bit untethered, next to the very ethereal, very subtle light beam. And then from the Forge palette is another one of my favorites of yours, Alexi. This dark purple, I think, is just gorgeous. And I'm really happy to have a couple of different of this shape with the different backgrounds. I think are fun next to each other. So thank you for letting me share that.
Thanks. Well, thanks for sharing your crazy journey through like the whole history of Roblox, I guess, because if you started with the first Chromie Squiggles, then you were able to mint those like super OG projects up to the final ones. And like, really, I guess, at least personally, it was really fascinating to see your process going through this history of minting, but also the way you're using like visual layout to convey a different story, right? Because you're combining pieces that were not meant to be next to each other, right? Like, I don't think Jeff was thinking about putting his pieces next to Return, for example, but then it worked. And this is something that is really, I guess, the core part of the community is like people, and you talked a little bit about this, the trading aspect is crazy. Like, people are really happy to help other people finish their sets, right? And the word finish is really interesting. Like I just miss one. Like Eric was trying to get all messengers. Like, he does these crazy projects all of the time, and he
That's
just
right.
he just needed one more, right? Because he was not able to get one final messenger of the Berlin palette, as you said before, and then a trade appeared, and then people were able to help. Well, you helped Eric to finish the wall 29, 27 messengers full set, like crazy stuff
I
that
did.
only Eric is aiming at. But yeah, and I think it's really interesting to see how those people are past the value of the pieces, right? It's really about the feelings behind, and this idea of, okay, I see a story where I need to connect a few of those and to create a link between these, and I will help others to find the same like achievement somehow by finishing something that makes sense across a few projects. And that's something that is crazy interesting, because then suddenly we have like different stories that are there. I think Eric will just want to jump in.
Yeah, I want to just say something too, Kate. When you mentioned that it's like why you gave up the pieces is because you're never going to sell them, and it just kind of resonated with me because it's like it doesn't matter who owns them if the intent is never to sell them.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. You can see them whenever you want. This is blockchain. If one day Art Blocks decided to only let people see the art they wanted to, that they owned, you could get into the blockchain and get the pieces. Like you always have access to those pieces, and I think that's something really special there. Because I mean, I can't imagine selling my Art Block pieces, and if you put it that way, it really just makes me wonder like why I even have them. Like they should kind of end up in other places, just because there's no reason to even, I don't know. That was really special when you said that, because it kind of justifies having all these pieces. Like it kind of makes you feel like not such a crazy, like my 29 messenger collection. Like there is just no way that that's ever going to be sold. Like I try to picture what scenario that would happen. It's just not going to happen, and it really kind of gives a purpose to that. So I thought that was a pretty cool way to put that. There's just no, they're priceless as far as I'm concerned. And
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. And the fact that it is priceless in a counterintuitive way made it easier to let go, because I knew that I could always enjoy it. I knew that Alexi would be surprised that I would want to give it to him. And I thought that's an experience I want to have. I want to see what happens. I just really want to kind of have fun with this and play.
Yeah.
And I think more so in Alexi's artist channel than any others I've been in, it feels like a playground in the best possible way. I was trying to think of analogies. It's like, if anyone's ever done improv, I've only done it once. It was really scary, but also one of the best things I've ever done. Buy set and try improv. There's a framework in improv which is called yes and. It's used in business settings too, but it essentially means when you say something, you take for granted, you just accept at face value that what the person before you said is true, and what you are going to say is going to be additive and build on top of what somebody else said. And it's not a perfect analogy, but that's kind of what it feels like in Alexi's artist channel. And I think it's how we collectively, and there are many of us who got as much enjoyment out of helping each other complete our sets, was because we could see and appreciate what they were doing. They shared their vision. They, each of us like different color palettes. I like some better than others. And I think that's great, because it was easier for me to let go of some, and it made, somebody else really happy. And so this sort of yes, this is amazing, and I can help you finish, and you can help me. And so it became, we start with individual pieces, and then we talk about a trilogy, and then we talk about collecting sets, and then we talk about helping each other collect sets, and then we talk about this amazing community that we have. It just kind of blows my mind, and I love the art, and I'm going to stay for the community, because I just think it's really special.
Yeah, I definitely agree. This is like the best interactions so far I've been with the collectors, with the community that are engaged in wanting to learn about the process, wanting to learn about the ideas behind the pieces, about the technical details. people know that my circles are not circles; they're like 60-sided polygons because people have asked, and I had to explain that's why some of the void you can see actually an angle. If you look really closely, you can see an angle, and 720 minutes also is not a circle; it's a 100 sided polygon this time, and to give back to the community, maybe I just segue into the competition that I did for the release of Obisera, where it was really a play behind the wall concept of the piece of the trilogy, where we had the void that is like the space, and then we have the aliens that are the messengers that are bringing us something, and something would be a message that people will have to decode. And it was a challenge that was actually really interesting to see, because some people were able to reverse engineering the code for Obisera before it was released. And I think it's PHABC. I hope I pronounced the name right. He had everything correct, except he flipped the horizontal and the vertical axis. So his answer to the puzzle was not linked because it was not, it was flipped, mirrored in a weird way. And then when I started to, you needed to have all mints to be able to solve the puzzle. And then people were starting to do this. And then I got a message from T. Bachman saying that he was doing this manually. And I was like, who are those crazy people that are trying to do a 529 pieces puzzle using copy and paste? And then he's telling me, no, it's actually 4 of us. And it's like, yeah, it's going to be Debugman, Neil Flicker, George P, and Keight. And I was like, what are they doing? And they just spent 4 hours just copy pasting this, just to understand the to decode the message. And I was, in my mind, this was really trying to give something back to this idea of community. Like, how can you guide people to look at the collection as a whole, trying to find the similarities that I wanted to be in the piece, and find something different eventually. But just to kind of celebrate this idea of, we are not only doing with generative art, with I think it's going to sound super cheesy, but it's also a generative community, in the sense that we are gathering like similar minded people around this idea of and geeking out about the process. And if you've been in generative art, you know that everything is about the process. It's not about the final results only, because the way you generate the piece is as valuable as the final results. And this whole idea of involving the community into something that would play with the whole collection was something that I think was kind of interesting to explore. And when I saw that people were just doing it manually, I was like, okay, those guys are crazy. And then I had to give them some prize, right? Because they spent 4 hours trying to make sense of this. And I actually sent them the prizes yesterday, so just in time for this event. So I can share you the final piece that actually went to Keight, because so if you can share my screen now, this is the final piece that is part of the prize that was sent to the 4 winners. And there was also a 5th one in auction that just Erin just won a few hours ago. And it's really for me a way to, okay, what made Void, Messengers, and Obisera interesting. And this is all about the layout of circles. And I tried to take one design element from all 3 pieces, mash them up together so that it creates a new cohesive piece. And this is one of the results. So to be honest, I made 5 of them. So let me show you the all of them. So I minted them in Foundation, because Artblocks is not really for one-on-one right now. So maybe if something that might be interesting to look into in the future, if Artblocks could allow for this type of mints as well. And I really wanted to trick them into choosing the piece that was meant for them, right? And I got it 100% right. And that was
You
something
did?
that was really happy for. Yeah, I did.
I
This was
didn't know
completely
that.
meant on purpose, because I knew you would probably go for Time for Blood, and the Bachman would definitely go for Fantastic. And this was because the Bachman is famous for his monochrome collection, right? He's the one that's been collecting the black and white pieces for all across the art blocks mints, but then is also really adamant about working with colors and interacting with him. I knew he was going to fight for the Fantastic one. And then I have to say, George P, I guess, had the set in Matcha Strawberry. So I went for this. And then I just looked at the final Null Flicker collection, and I said, okay, this is something that will appeal to him. And the final one, the Patina one, I also made an Icy Blues, just to throw you off the hook, and maybe I'll share it to Ponyo afterwards, because Ponyo is a huge Icy Blues fan. But the Patina was the one I wanted to put it in auction, because that's the one I personally like the best. So it ended up working perfectly well with this whole price for the solving the riddle. And so thanks again for joining in the contest and working with this.
Yeah,
So
I've said this before, that it might have been a little bit longer than 4 hours, but we'll call 4 hours. That 4 hours I spent with the other three was one of the best experiences I've had on Art Blocks. I mean, it was crazy. The four of us trying to figure out what the riddle meant. We had all kinds of crazy ideas. We were all over the place. We kind of threw some around on Friday, and then Saturday kind of zoomed in. It was just incredibly fun. So I think it's kind of fitting that a team of 4 people talking about community, a team of 4 people solved the puzzle. I think that kind of speaks to, what we've been talking about in terms of community tonight. And the fact that one of us suggested to stack rank our preferences of palettes and then see how it all shook out. And clearly you're a genius, but I was surprised that we all got our first choice. When we stack ranked it, it just worked out perfectly. We didn't have to do any horse trading or, figure out, your second favorite or anything. So I think that's really special. So thank you. I love it.
thanks. I had to stop doing those because I really like the outputs eventually, and just like, well, time to move on to another piece and do all their stuff that are waiting in the future. But yeah, I think the really core component of what we are trying to convey today is really this idea of the art blocks is the community first, right? It's not only the artists, right? The artists are only there and they can find success because the community supports them, and there is this whole mindset behind this whole idea of geeking out about generative art. And the recent levels of hype, I have to say, are completely scary, right? This is not fine. This is not fine at all. The 1 week mint period for Void was far more enjoyable in the sense that we had the time to look at the mints. We took collectively a step back to appreciate a new mint when it came out of the minter, and people were timing their mints to be part of this process with the community, right? Like it was during completely the first NFT crash market of 2021 that happens every 2 weeks, but that was like kind of a really enjoyable moment, and I think we're kind of missing the point right now when drops are selling in a few minutes. I'm not gonna complain because I made a lot of money, far more than what was ever possible. Thanks a lot to everybody that joined. I told you not to buy Obisera too. But then moving on, and I think there is this commodity aspects of the generative art process that I think we have to just refocus somehow to take a new direction on what it means to mint a piece, right? This is a shared experience that I would rather take the time to go through with people that I know will be enjoying the process as well. and it's something that is really core to the art blocks experience. That's why it's right now so hard to enjoy the minting process, because it's so successful that people are just trying to do everything using bots and everything. But the thrill of the mint, like, okay, I'm going to take the time to go to the site, click on the button, and wait the 10 seconds or so for the transaction to clear and see what I will get, and not click again just because I need to mint before it's ending, but just okay, this is my piece now. What does it mean to me? What's my relationship with this? What's the story behind? And really, like, I would like to thank the whole community, thank the platform, thank Eric and everybody else involved, because this is something that, at least personally as an artist, means the world to me, right? It's like, I know people are just taking the time to enjoy what is coming out of something that they created. I don't know the output either. That's the beauty of art blogs. I have an idea what the algorithm can generate, but I will be there with you, looking at the result and just say, "Wow, okay, this is a nice one," and the next one will also be a new surprise, and and really, I don't have a way out of this line of thought, by the way. So if someone can just jump in
I have a
and
question.
cut me through. Yes, sir. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. It's tangentially related. So, preparing for tonight, I read a few interviews that you have given. And back in May, you did an interview with, I think it's Artie NFT.
Yes,
and
yes.
you were asked about your feelings when a project launches. And one of the things you wondered was, will people find me in the piece? And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, what do you mean by that? People finding you in the piece. And did that happen in this trilogy project?
So this is a super weird way of looking at the art, right? Like, especially when we're talking about generative art, there is really two aspects to the practice, right? You have the technical side of things, and then you have the artistic side of things. So if you are really crude and you look at Void, people might say, "Oh, it's circle packing and some blur on top of it." And I will say, yes, it's circle packing and blur on top of it. Those are techniques that are used all over the place in generative art. But I made them my own by choosing the way I'm using them. And that is my take on those techniques. This is my contribution to the field. This is what I'd like to convey through the piece, is look at how I made those. Look at how those circles are packed together. It's just not, they're not just touching. There is some logic behind the touching. There is some direction here. And if people are able to look at one void, then look at the messenger, then look at the Obisera without any context, and if they're able to say, "Oh, I guess it's the same artist," then I think I won. Right? It's like I've been able to input enough of me inside the piece so that people can find this across different algorithms, and that's something that I really strive to do when I'm working, and I'm trying to say, okay, what makes this something out of me, right? Like, what makes this an original MacTuti piece? Because people use MacTuti for my pieces. I don't know. Like, my name is not as famous as MacTuti right now. So, but what that's my real intention behind those generative processes is, why did I chose those parameters, right? Why am I stopping here? Why do I think it's the perfect way of using this algorithm so far? And if people are able to understand that part of the process, they can find me in a different piece, right? And I guess that's also why I do the daily generative challenge. Like, I've been doing daily animation for 4 years and a half right now, so posting on Shell Souls every day a new animation. But if people are following me there, they follow the process of creating, and there is it's an iterative process where I add and add and add to the same idea for weeks, then I change to a new idea, but I take back all the learnings I found in the previous months of exploration to the new one. And I hope that people find this uniqueness, for the lack of a better term, that is really about my contribution and my artistic, I don't know, feelings about the stuff. And that's what I meant by, if people are able to find the me part behind the code, that's something that I really appreciate, in the sense that those people are able to understand what I wanted to do.
So pivoting on that question a little bit, I remember in the run up to Obicera, you were posting in your channel a few sample outputs. And there was a night when there were more than the usual number of us that were all in your channel at the same time. And you were chatting with us, and I forget exactly what we were, what feature we were geeking out over. But at some point you said, screw it, I'm not going to work on my daily anymore. It's good enough. I've got an idea. Thanks. I'm going to go work on this project. I don't know if you remember that. It doesn't matter. My question is, did, through the trilogy of these projects and the engagement with collectors in your channel, talking about the art, starting with Void and then moving to Messengers and Obicera, did your experience of the community at all, are there any fingerprints in the later work from the earlier conversations, if that makes sense? Do you in some kind of way see the community and the collectors in your work? Like we see you in your work, do you see us in your work?
Yes, I 100%. This, like the whole interactions I had with you and the other collectors when we went through Void, talking about the technicalities of the pieces, why there is a cut in some pieces and it doesn't show as a cut. Like, it happened once. There is a ghost cut there somewhere, and it really, like, there are a few things in Messengers and Obicera that are designed to appeal to the geekiest of collectors, right? Like the fact that I'm using 1.2 million circles. It's like I knew some people would be interested in knowing this. Do I need 1.2 million circles? No, because like there's 400,000 of them that are in the background and that nobody's seeing. I know it, but it's there anyway. It creates hooks for people to start looking, and this is something that really came through the interactions with the community. What makes those people interested in the work? What are the slight slivers of information I can give so that people will start to look at the piece in a different way? Like if you go to Obicera and you see that the circles are not aligned by their centers anymore, I don't think people have really thought about this, but it's the circles are not aligned by their centers. They're aligned by the bottom line to make it look like it's writing and not just circles aligned. Well, like this type of details are really about finding, like, it's not Easter eggs per se, because it's driving the creative process and the things that I wanted to convey with the piece. But it's really, I knew some people would find those points interesting, and I would build on top of this to push the things even further, so that I know that they will react here. What can I do next so that I can throw them in a different direction, and then I can find something new. And what you just told us about this interaction where I had a new idea to make the piece to a different level was, I guess, this idea of not having circles aligned on the middle. And this came because we were talking about something different. And that's really, you never know when the inspiration will strike. If you're ready to implement whatever crazy idea you have, you will only have nice surprises. And half of those surprisings are coming right now from the community interaction with you, with all the people in the channels, Twitter as well, and everything. So yeah, definitely the me right now in my pieces are also half of you, and we are cycling through all this process together.
Yeah, I have to say, I think that's incredibly special. And, I've really enjoyed this whole process, watching the art, watching the community get built, watching people talk about the art. It's just it's a fabulous place to be. And yeah, thank you for that.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, I have some questions from the community that I would love to bring up with the two of you. First question is for Keight. What are those pieces on the wall behind you?
I used to live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I remodeled my house and wanted to buy art from artists from the Bay Area. So I believe his name is Jonathan Parker, and this is acrylic and canvas that's painted and then stitched. It's almost like a applique pieces. The individual colors are pieces of canvas that are painted and stitched on.
Great, appreciate that. What are you collecting besides art blocks, and do you see a common thread with generative art?
Is that for me as well?
Yeah, it's for you. Yeah. Sorry.
I have, as I said, I showed up to Art Blocks in January and really didn't know anything, and I still feel like I don't know very much. So I'm actually taking mostly a pause from collecting at the moment, to give myself kind of some time to think about my intention and my relationship to the art. And I will certainly collect more art and more art blocks, but I feel like it's almost like an embarrassment of riches that there's so many amazing things. I want to be able to enjoy all of them. So a bit of a pause, but I also am interested in looking beyond. And that's part of what I'm going to be doing when I start to think about being ready to collect again, is to look beyond art blocks just to see what else is out there. I found myself last week ordering 6 books on the history of generative art and a book, one of Casey Rees's processing books. So I also want to just roll up my sleeves and understand a little bit about how this art is made. Yeah.
Excellent.
Paint, only paint. You push pixel in paint.
And then the last question for you, Keight, is how do you mock up the pieces prior to buying? Like when you've done it for ringers, you've taken like multiple images and you've kind of have this perfect screenshot almost. Like, is there a program that you use, or what do you use to mock everything?
I'm embarrassed to say. It's just PowerPoint. Yeah, and then I copy and paste. Yeah, there's nothing fancy about it.
Easy. All right,
yeah.
Perfect. That's great. And then the next few questions are for you, Alexi. Do you plan on releasing new projects that work as a series?
To be fair, right now, I have a couple of secret projects that I obviously can talk about that are not meant to be a series. So this whole idea of making it a trilogy was like really a learning experience as well. So maybe I'll do this in the future. But the next idea I have for my next big Art Blocks project doesn't work as a series. So it's going to be a one shot so far.
Okay, appreciate that. What art would you like to make that is currently hindered because the technology is not there yet?
You know that I can't code, right? But the idea of like I've been playing recently with Nanu, that is a creative coding framework in Rust that is using web GPU that allows to use the latest technologies and shaders, compute shaders, and everything, and that is not yet available for the web, right? And there is a lot of stuff that you can do with compute shaders where you can put the GPU to its knees that would just allows a breakthrough in visual quality, right? And I've been doing this I'm reading myself for the day we can use this on every computer. And then if we are able to use compute shaders to their fullest, it's going to contribute to global warming a lot, because a lot of machines are going to overheat just to try to render those pieces. But then we can do so much more. And I have a PhD in computer graphics, if people were not aware of this. So I've been playing with those high-end technologies for the past 20 years or so. And the next step is going to be compute shaders on the web, on any device. And this is going to be really interesting to see how far we can push things. And also some really simple details. Can I have like float textures to render light in? It's like super geeky, super crazy details, but I cannot do the level of blending and perfect colors on the web that I do on my other pieces. That's why on my other pieces, you might see some different lights type of blending. And that's because I have more advanced technology there. So it will come in due time. I don't know how many people will be, have been able to follow this, but yeah, it's going to be amazing in a few years, believe me.
Awesome. And then the last question is, if you were going to teach a class of grade school kids about art and you had 30 minutes, what would you choose to teach them?
The process of taking a piece of paper out of the bag, taking a pencil and draw a line. Because people will always say, I wish I could draw, or I wish I could write a novel, or I wish I could do something. And the problem is not that they can't, it's because they are not trying. And my class would be about understanding how easy it is to take a piece of paper, a pencil, and draw a line. And the key point is, once you've started drawing a line, you don't stop there. You never stop at drawing one line. You always do something more. But the idea that taking a piece of paper out and a pencil is hard is what prevents people from doing this in the first place. So my lecture would be about the process of doing something is not hard. The idea of starting is.
Got it. No, that's appreciated. Thank you. Well, I wanted to thank Keight and Alexi for both being here. I thought this was a fantastic conversation. I really loved, the flow and just, I don't know, it was fantastic. It was just awesome to hear about the colors, the community, and you really just both encompass what I love about art blocks. And I really appreciate you both being here this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Well, and with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the Squiggle giveaway. I will post the link shortly that will lead you to 4 trivia questions. Most answers can be found on the community-driven Artblocks wiki page, which is artblocks.wiki. But there is also one question that you can only, if you were paying attention, then you should know the answer to it. So I'm going to post, it's moving kind of fast, but I'm going to go ahead and post it a couple times. It's moving really fast. So I posted the link to the trivia. You will need to answer all 4 questions correctly. And for those who get all answers correct within 3 minutes, their names will be put into a random number generator, and one person will be the winner of a brand new Squiggle. And while we start that countdown of 3 minutes, I will go ahead and provide a couple love to see it highlights of the week. The first one is from Clark Peters. They nominate Rev Dan Cat for making a suit with a custom 70s pop inner lining for a community member who correctly guessed when Dan's Fidenza would sell. And then, in addition to that, LeMay also wanted to nominate Rev Dan Cat for selling their Fidenza to help fund the purchase of a brand new studio. So, props to Rev Dan Cat for the, gifting a very cool and unique one-of-one 70s pop inner lining, and then also for a new purchase of a brand new studio. So for anyone else that has, love to see it highlight of the week, please drop me a DM so we can share some positive highlights from the community. And it looks like right now we got about 100. We got a little over 2 minutes right now. And during that time, maybe Snowfro, if you have any news and notes.
Yeah, well, man, that was incredible last hour. I can't thank you guys enough for coming on here and sharing those stories. I thought they were very insightful. My thing keeps cutting out. So can you see me? Can you see my
Yeah,
screen?
I can see now. Yeah, you're good.
Oh, yeah. Can you pull in my screen, or is it going to take some time to do it? I have this screen pulled up. Is it not going to work in the
Hang
middle
on one
of
second.
You can replace my face with it. I'm in bed in a hotel room. My computer is keeping me very warm with this. And while that's happening, just everybody out there that's doing this, please have your ETH address ready. This has gone already way over an hour, and let's just get this going. So just a quick tease, really excited to share this with you. This is a future on Cyber gallery, and it is a literally perfect representation of the Art Blocks house in Marfa. It's a 1920s Adobe home. And so giving you guys a little preview for all the folks that are coming. Today on my flight, the guy that sat next to me on the plane literally was like, oh yeah, I'm going to Marfa. Totally random person sitting next to me on the flight. I was like, oh, you're the Art Blocks guy? Yeah, I'll see you guys in Marfa. So anyways, just wanted to share this with you guys. Soon there will be places to put art up, and you'll experience the same limitations that we do in that there's not a lot of places to put art in the house of Marfa, but we're really excited to share this with you guys in October. So yeah, I just thought I'd give you all that little tease, and hopefully it'll be on Cyber here in the next couple days.
Very cool. And then I know we have I know you're not going to announce it now, but we have a new hire that starts this week, and then another one next week.
That's right. We have some brilliant people joining Art Block. Somehow it's just and yeah, we just couldn't be happier.
Great. All right. Well, looks like we have closed up the trivia. And
good luck,
we have
everybody.
How many people do we have, Luke? 147. I feel like that's about 130, 140 seems like the ballpark for every week now. All right, we're going to go ahead and fire up the number 17. Sasuke the Avenger, is that right? We'll drop there you go. Sasuke the Avenger. All right, well, if you have, hopefully Sasuke's in here. If you can go ahead and drop your ETH address to Snowfro, we'll go ahead and hopefully fire up the Squiggle minter this evening, if there's enough people.
We'll see if there's enough people to mint it. Otherwise, we'll mint it as soon as there is.
All right, well, let me see if I can... oh, there we go. Looks like we tagged Sasuke. Well, while that's being figured out, on next week's show, which will actually be pre-recorded on, so that'll be aired on September 19th, which is next Sunday, we have Aaron Penne, who's done Apparitions and Return. We'll have Boretta, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who is collaborating with Aaron on a playground drop in the next few weeks at Bright Moments. The project is called Rituals. And then we're also going to have Zero Beta, who is an Art Blocks collector. So we'll kind of use the same format as we used this evening, and really looking forward to that project, or really looking forward to the discussion. And did you hear anything, Snowfro, from...
I have not.
All right, we'll give it a few more seconds, and then, maybe it's just one of those things where we'll go ahead and mint potentially tomorrow.
Yeah. So, Adventure. Hey there. You send me here. I think we're gonna have to start having like a timer. Like you have 1 minute, and it goes to the next person.
Yeah. Maybe for the next one we can do that. I like that idea.
You just gotta be ready. You just gotta be.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. I don't know how to DM. All right. Well, if you want to just put your ETH address inside
Got
the
it.
channel. Oh, you got it?
Yeah, and I guess it doesn't have to be DM'd unless people want to take it to the grave. But anybody can see where it's going. Okay, if the squigglers are around, there is a transaction waiting for you in the multi-sig. And as soon as it goes through, I'll execute it. And yeah, let's see what happens.
All right, let's see.
1 out of 3. Alexi and Keight, I don't know if y'all saw me cracking up when y'all were talking, but somebody posted in the chat about this conversation where someone asked Alexis if he knew how to code, and I just, yeah, I just love our, Discord sometimes. It's like...
That meme is never going to get old.
Yeah. There's a couple of them. There's one that happened a couple days ago, but
yeah. Oh man. All right, let's see here. We have 2 out of 3. Waiting for one more.
Why don't we give it another, 15, 30 seconds? If not, you want to just go ahead and try to bank on it for tomorrow?
Yeah, for sure. And see here.
All right, we'll give it a few more seconds.
Sorry for the multi-sig, guys, but it really is the way to go. I feel much more comfortable having the privilege of minting squiggles with this security in place.
I think it's super important. Everyone's got to have some kind of security. It's just you don't know who's out there and looking to do something malicious. So.
All right, so we might, we might just do it tomorrow, and I'll just mint it as soon as people get around to it. We'll let me just 1 second. Give me 10 more seconds, guys, and if not, then we're good. We'll do it some other time. No big deal.
No problem.
Otherwise, thank you everybody for tonight for joining. It really was special. I got a lot of laughter and almost cried too. So thanks. Y'all are great. It was really just a wonderful.
Yeah, it's all about the community and the stories we share. Thanks for enable this. I mean, really, I mean, your vision of what we are all enjoying right now is really why we're here, right? Like, we have a place where we can geek out about the process, share the experiences with like super fine people. Not to turn this into a political statement or anything, but yeah, like this idea of we are now able to connect with the right people and to just be able to share this love for this weird part of the art that we call generative art, and that is like using computers to do stuff. And it was, I guess, due that we have this place to share with everybody else. And thanks again for providing this opportunity and platform. And I guess everybody there is really just like thanking you for creating this. And we are here thanks to you, and we'll help you go to the next level, because there's been so much fun during the process that I guess we won't stop here, even if it's a bear market and everything is going crazy right now. But this is not what we are about. Like, this is more than just like the crypto scene. I guess we have now something else that we can tell to people. Like, I was able to explain to my 8-year-old that I'm selling pictures of my art online, and that people were actually paying for those, and like not talking about numbers and anything, but just to convey the concept of suddenly there are people interested in this type of art because we were able to reach them, and that's just life changing. So thanks again for that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, thank
it
you.
wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for all the art that's on the platform, and if it wasn't for the team that makes this all happen every day. So, you know, I appreciate the credit for the thought. It definitely meant a lot for people to actually care enough to do it and to join and to put art on the platform. So yeah, no, it's all pretty special, and yeah, no, it's just every day I wake up and I'm like, what is this really happening? And that crummy squiggle is really beautiful. Congratulations. Whoever called
did it
it
go through?
open. Yeah, so I finally had it to go through. Whoever called it open socket, no, open terminal or closed terminal. It's a nice open terminal ribbed you got there.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Well, I just want to thank, Alexi and Keight again for being our special guests this evening. It's just a fantastic, truly just incredible conversation, between the two of you. I just really appreciate you carving out some time and talking to us in the community. And I also obviously want to thank Snowfro for joining us this evening from the East Coast in New York. Appreciate you being here. Yeah, and as always, make sure that you comment, like, and subscribe to the Art Blocks YouTube channel. And we'll sign off here by making sure you be kind to each other. Remember to buy what you love, and we will see you all next week.
Bye, everybody, and thank you for joining. Thanks, Luke.
Good night.
Thanks, Ponyo. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.